Well, hello everyone. I am Garrett. This is Indra and Wesley, and we're the founders of Sora Schools. It's a new online project-based high school where students get to explore their interests and gain valuable exposure to future careers and fields of work. But, I'll tell you that this is our very first year, and so far we have 8 students, and so far they're absolutely loving it, having a great time. But before I tell you exactly what they're doing and what Sora is, I will leave with a little background, a little bit of the story of who we are. So like I said, this is us 3. We all met actually while studying at Georgia Tech. So we all started previous companies. I started 2 nonprofits beforehand. They started a successful digital media company. But really where we met was at a company called Contrary Capital, which was a college-focused venture capital firm where we were investing and mentoring in startups, young people with super ambitious ideas of how they wanted to change the world. So we said, okay, why can't we take this mindset that we're curating doing that, and plus the experience we have starting companies before, and apply it to our passion, which is education. So that innocent goal, that large goal, led us down quite a rabbit hole over a year where we were traveling the US, talking to school founders, talking to scientists, really anyone with unique insight in how they can holistically develop a student, really, holistically, and create really the school of the future. So part of that journey, we met some incredible people and people who agreed to join our advisory board. People like John Danner, who started the first large-scale experiment in personalized learning. People like Chris Mahoney, who ran the fastest-growing charter school network in California. And then just others who have lots of experience in private schools, charter schools, and public schools. But the real superstars of this operation are these 3 staff members. We're super lucky at Sora when we started this. We gave a vision of teachers being able to control their own curriculum, working one-on-one with students, deciding what and when they want to learn things to best optimize for student outcomes, and that was super exciting for our faculty. So we were lucky enough to have hundreds of applications for each of our position. So this really is the cream of the crop, and they're doing incredible work with our students. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Wesley to tell you actually how Sora works.
So in starting Sora, we didn't look at traditional classrooms or traditional schools. We looked at the future of work that these students are going to be going into, and so we modeled our program after effective creative workplaces where different people from different backgrounds and different disciplines come together to tackle real-world problems. So that's what we're about here at Sora. Our curriculum is very different than traditional schools. We don't have any classes or any lectures. What we do is we help students identify what they're interested in and help them start real-world projects around those interests. And they collaborate with our team that Garrett mentioned before in a one-on-one fashion each week to be able to tackle these projects, scaffold their learning, and to be able to track all this back to a transcript so that they can go to college out of our program. We've also built a mentor network of over 50 different professionals from different backgrounds, and they are donating their time to talk to each student about their career path and help them identify different projects that may be potentially interesting for them to learn more about that field. And so I'll hand it over to Indra to talk about our day in the life of the Sora student.
Right, so our students are doing some pretty cool things. Like right now, our students have already started their very first projects, some in groups, some individual. Our students are building algae farms in their backyards. A group of them are building their own video game. One student's writing a fantasy novel. Another student's doing scientific research on essential oils. So our students are doing a lot of really cool things. But what does that look like, day to day? What does going to school at Sora look like? So every single morning, we have what we call our morning stand-up. This is really an opportunity for students to get the day started, to get motivated, to just meet the other students and get the rest of the day going. So in the morning stand-up, students talk about their projects, their goals, and what they're doing for the day. They also talk about different challenges and blockers, and if they need help from anyone, faculty and or student, on certain projects or things that they're doing. And throughout the week, we also have a variety of synchronous events, different activities. Our faculty host workshops on different topics that students find interesting. Like last week, we had some on Native American history and the physics of Star Wars. Students also organize their own clubs, so they have various club meetings. Fantasy book club, movie club. I've lost track of the clubs, so I can go on. And students, as Wesley mentioned earlier, also meet one-on-one with our faculty every single week to talk about their projects and their goals. Really, our faculty, at least our learning experts, serve as project managers for the students because they talk with the students their projects, their deadlines, and just how they're going about sort of scaffolding their learning. And our experts also make sure that the students are incorporating different academic standards and content into their work. So for the future, in the next several months, we're looking to build partnerships with local organizations and businesses for work opportunities and exposure for students. students. Right now, like I said, we have students doing some pretty interesting projects and kind of learning in some pretty interesting ways, and some students interested in like design, computer science, and so forth. So we're trying to kind of make sure we have opportunities for those students to really apply their learning in the real world. We also want more structured mentor network engagement. Right now, it's more or less ad hoc. The students are just meeting our mentors on just one-on-one, just kind of on a one-off basis. Really, this is just for us to understand what's the best cadence, and they really like just meeting with the mentors because it's pretty exciting to hear from someone doing something that you're super interested in, whether it's in like medicine or engineering or business. But we want to make this more structured so that students will have more of like a solid, like lifelong relationship with our mentors. And finally, it's our first year of operation, so we're still going through the school accreditation process. It typically takes 1 to 2 years, so give us some time, and we're pretty confident we can hit that. But our ask to you all really is, we're just trying to look for families who want to better prepare their high school students for their futures and their careers. So if y'all know anyone, or you yourself are a parent who might be interested in enrolling your high school student in Sora, we'd love to talk to you. Otherwise, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our presentation, and we're happy to take any questions.
If you had to profile a perfect student for your program, so that we can help you figure out who we recommend, what does that look like? Who do they look like?
Yeah, so these are ideal students. I'd say we have a variety of different types of students, but I'd say the student that we feel thrives best in the Sora environment is a student who's a little bit more self-directed, just they're a bit bored and restless in a traditional like classroom environment. They may have 1 or 2 interests that they might have actually already started developing on their own. Like they might be really interested in math, or they might be really interested in writing or something like that. They have something that they're passionate about. So that's it. I hope that helps answer it. And typically they come from like a homeschooling background, and the family has some type of experience with non-traditional education, at least in our experience. But like I said, the program itself is developing.
Do you all have a network of people, because I'm assuming your kids are here, there, and everywhere. How do you plug them into socialization things, like in case they're into sports or band, or and also learning soft skills so that they're not just interacting with virtual people on the screen? How do you all do that?
Right, so socialization, that piece was built in really from day one, because not only online schools, but even traditional schools don't really do a lot with developing community. I mean, most parents think that going to high school means socialization. We could definitely go an entire day without talking to anyone. We get judged in class if we talk. Anyway, so we've built this community aspect really from day one with the morning stand-ups, with the clubs. In fact, many of our students who come from public or private school backgrounds have told us that they feel more socially engaged now than they did before. But with the caveat that most of it is online, even though for this generation it feels pretty natural, we do have some in-person events. Like this weekend they're going to an escape room together. Students do like club swim. So they do things exterior to Sora as well, but most of it is online.
So as a teacher, so I've been a teacher, and as a parent who no longer has high school students because they're all out of the nest, and a homeschool mom, how are you vetting these mentors for safety for these kids? Because like my first thing is predators. That freaks me out. Not personally, but I know. So how are you vetting these people? What are you doing for their backgrounds? What kind of clearances are you running? What are you doing?
Yeah, so we run a standard background check on all our mentors, and we put them through a multi-step interview process to understand why they're mentoring, that type of thing. So we're doing our best to try to make sure. And then the students are talking about their experience afterwards, like, would you want to talk to this mentor again? Like, we kind of feel comfortable debrief with the student as well after they have that mentor conversation.
Yeah, and most of the mentors as of now are either like personal connections and or like 1 degree removed. So like I said, we have a pretty like strict vetting process and our like context as well. So
I imagine you guys probably have like multiple users and multiple people from all over. So like if you're in charge of a CEO in your company of a head writer firm, right? You have all these students that are interested in writing a professional document or want to be a freelancer or whatnot. You're trying to interact with the people that are actually working in the field there. You guys have like a way of separating. It's like I'm an employer. I have all these students, 10,000, let's say, 1,000 students, and I've got to go through each one. You guys have like top 10 that are like a way of his employers want to know that thing.
Like
Like
a
a list, if you will.
Are you saying after when they're actually looking to be hired or during their experience to get work?
Like internships and stuff.
Like internships.
Yeah.
So there are a few ways. Right now, we only have 8 students, so we're more hand matching, talking to companies like what sort of student are you looking for, and then we find the best student. And then if the student doesn't have the exact skills, for example, we were just talking to a creative agency, like we really are interested in a student who has good illustrator skills. So we have a student who's really talented at Photoshop, that sort of stuff. So now he's learning Illustrator to become that student that they actually want. So that's something that we're constantly doing. And then after the fact, when they're actually looking for employment or maybe college, we develop a portfolio for them, or they develop with our help a portfolio that's really similar to a resume that you'd be going out. So we show their top work, and it really helps employers be able to actually see what they did instead of a weird transcript that says they got an A and this, because that doesn't give much information.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
You had a question earlier, so.
Interested just in a ballpark figure for tuition cost?
We're $950 a month, so expensive, but about half of what traditional private schools are.
What age group? What?
8
The
to
same-
12th grade.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a multi-age learning environment, with the concept of grades. But yeah, generally 13 to 18. Most of our students, because we just started on the younger end, so most of our students are aged about 14 to 16 on average.
So, good. Okay. So I see most of this is designed in a way where it can scale pretty easily geographically. Although I imagine right now most of your students are in the Atlanta area.
The greater Atlanta area,
So,
parts of Georgia.
yeah, but like the only part that I see difficult on the scaling side of this is like the employment opportunities and things like that you're trying to create for people that become real world. And so have you really, what are your thoughts on how to address the barriers of kind of the outside of the virtual world aspects of what this is?
External opportunities.
So I'd say we're still at the phase for Y Combinator, Lingo, the do things that don't scale section of our growth.
Yeah.
In the future, we will think about how we scale those opportunities for other states. Right now, it's mostly handpicked in our own network. But even as we're growing, as we're doing things like this, talking on podcasts, we are getting people to reach out saying, I really believe in this mission, how can I help? And so that network's starting to grow, but right now it really is just handpicked in this area. So that,
So
I agree with you. It is
yeah,
large.
and in regards then to, so if, it sounds like to help you right now, it's really referring students to you, but are there other things that we can do to help you, if we do refer students in this area to make sure that they get the full experience that they might get somewhere else?
Yeah, so another way that you can really help us is if you are a company or you know a company who's looking for, maybe you just believe in the mission or you are looking for skilled interns, that's another opportunity you can help us. As far as students joining from here and being a little geographically not in the same area, it's not that huge of a concern. Right. Even our student located in Rhode Island is still having a wonderful social experience. So the in-person events are, we thought the students would want to do them more. They plan things like going to movies every once in a while and things that friends do, but the actual academic and social experience is really scaled pretty well even in other places.
And part of it's frankly, like a generational shift too.
Yeah.
Like even us, although we might think, oh, in person, absolutely, and it's certainly important, but a lot of students, they literally grew up just talking to friends on the phone, video, webcam, that type of thing.
Yeah, my son's best friend's in Virginia, and they chat all day, every day, so I know what you mean.
We actually started with the presupposition that school has to be in person. We started Sora, getting the location, that sort of thing. We told our students to come in, and they quickly told us, my rocket's at home that I'm working on. I don't want to bring it to school every day. I'm having more fun, sitting at home talking to them over video chats. So we're like, okay, let's do what the kids actually want. So we became an online school.
Two questions are, since you guys are in the Atlanta area, are you all plugged into like your local chamber to connect with businesses through that, or the education system through that to help build momentum for what you're doing?
It's funny you mention that. That's actually something we're doing really soon, because someone mentioned that actually last week. So
Yeah, that would be amazing, because that's really going to help you, because you're looking for places for them to work, the chambers are gonna have bunches of opportunities, so
Yeah.
definitely plug into that. The other question is, are you all in all, you're 100% you, are you thinking maybe of partnering with other education institutions to be a part-time, they go there part of the day and then they do you guys part of the day?
That's a really good question. One thing that we've experimented with is we view Sora kind of as the engine of education. We're democratizing, making a really scalable process to rethink world-class self-directed education. So we've had schools that have actually reached out to us and said, okay, could we potentially have the students go through Sora at our location? Like, could we spin up a high school that's in a certain place using you guys kind of as the engine to power? That's something that we're exploring. We haven't done yet, but that's a really good.
Yeah, part of it's just focus, right? Make the school experience wonderful. But yeah, it's something we've identified as an opportunity in the future. So it's a question.
That's good.
Why do they want to pay $950 a month in that scenario? You have to get a cost per student.
That's what we get, right?
Yep. Part of that comes from scale too.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, part question I had is you said you were still looking for accreditation. So at this point, you're working together with high school students that are already still enrolled in an actual traditional high school, but this is like an extra for them to do, or is this to replace it?
So right now our students, the vast majority of our students are enrolled as Sora, as full-time high school students at Sora, like we are the high school, we are a high school, and vice versa.
Right.
So students go to us as a high school. For new schools that typically start up, whether you're some fancy private high school that started up in Buckhead or something, or what have you, or you're like a really small micro school. All schools typically, especially if they seek accreditation, they all start out unaccredited, and they all have to run, and the students all go to that school. And as the schools go through the accreditation process, which I said, it's like a 1 to 2 year thing.
Right.
Everything that students do after they were accredited is retroactively matched. So it's not like they're wasting time or something.
No. I mean, I looked at it from the aspect of it being like a mentorship or being not to degrade being like a tutor in a field, but something that would enhance what they already are doing. Not saying that I just didn't know if it was did they go to school already at a regular, traditional high school and also did your program, or was it just replacing it? Because I saw the accreditation part and I was kind of like, okay, well that's fine, but if it's not accredited, then it's like your kid is in high school and they have to follow certain guidelines for Georgia, and I know you said you're working with that program, so yeah.
Right. We actually did try with a student, just a little experiment because he was really interested in Sora, making Sora an after-school thing, just something that keep running experiments when you're young. So we tried that. It didn't work as well because it's mostly a psychology thing where if you have homework, you're going to prioritize that. You really have to be able to dive into the self-directed project-based thing. So it's on the roadmap. We're going to continue to experiment with it, but right now we are trying to be a full-time, full-fledged high school option. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm glad you had mentioned chambers. I do work with the chambers, so I want to make sure I talk to you all afterwards. But, but my question was going to be more along the lines of, here in Georgia as a prime example, we actually have large chunks that do not have access to broadband internet. So what are y'all's, goals or struggles going to be when it comes down to trying to reach out to, mainly focusing on the Atlanta area and larger city areas like Augusta and Savannah, or are y'all trying to make sure to touch base on the more rural areas throughout the state of Georgia, and what kind of requirements are they needing in order to be able to participate in this kind of program?
That's a good question. We do have a few rural students, however, they all have some sort of internet access, just that's the nature of the school. We've had students join us while camping from their phones, so if you have cell phone connection, I guess that works too. But right now, I don't think we can accommodate people who don't have internet access. Hopefully that can change in conjunction with other.
Yeah, perhaps in the future we could figure out some accommodations, like if they meant, if some students in a certain area around a certain geographic radius agreed to meet at a certain location. So there's a few things we can experiment with, but right now it's just a matter of focus.
I guess as a follow-up question, because you had the video at the very beginning where they were all having that video conference, how often and how much bandwidth will it be taking for them to be able to participate? I guess it's another question because, as you mentioned, they can get on their phone, that's great, but, if they have limited data per month, they don't want to charge up that bill as fast as possible, right? So how much data is an average student would be needing?
Two questions, interesting. We haven't, we don't have.
Tested it. You got it.
You generally need like a 5 to 10 meg connection,
Yeah.
for video chat to run really
Right.
well.
Yeah.
They can do just audio if they're in a place where it's like 1 to 2 megs, something like that. Actually, my parents' house is like up in like rural Georgia, so I've had to dial in a few times from there. I get like 1 to 2 down, it works.
Right.
But, yeah.
Yeah, and count yours is rural Georgia. I'll go to a post office and that's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
Considering accessibility, as Sora grows, what do you consider is an option for creating like maybe a sliding scale for accessibility to people who cannot afford the $9.50 a month?
Great question. So we actually raised our tuition slightly because what we're noticing is there are extremely talented students, well, it's just a general observation, extremely talented students on all income brackets, which is intuitive, I'm sure we all know that. So we want to be able to slightly raise tuition to build in a scholarship fund. So we are currently offering scholarships to multiple, I'd say
A couple.
Yeah, probably 3 or 4 of our students. So that is a big concern for us, both ethically, philosophically, so that's something that we want to continue doing as well.
Yeah.
Also the work opportunities that can help subsidize their tuition going forward. So that's why we're trying to build out these partnerships where kids could intern a couple days a week to lower their tuition.
Yeah, so it's something we're actively thinking about. Yes?
In regards to your target audience for recruiting students, have you considered both two parts, both military and project management?
Second period question.
You know, military students tend to move around a lot, and this is something where they don't have to switch schools every 6 months,
Yep.
2 years. That would be, I think that would be a good.
That's a really good
We'll likely ask you to elaborate on that second. Let's answer the military question first.
Yeah, no, that's a really, really good point. Someone also, actually my mom, because she works in the military, brought that up recently, and we're looking to get a meeting with Warner Robins, but yeah, I think that's a really, really good opportunity, because there's a much larger population in the military that homeschools, and
Yes.
they're obviously busy in the military, so they can't exactly address their needs. Especially when you get to high school, it's the largest population of homeschooling kids, even though you don't assume that. 33% of all homeschoolers are actually in high school. And so we want to address that market. We feel like there aren't really many good solutions, so we definitely want to explore that further.
But to elaborate more specifically, because you said military families, and then you said project management. Could you?
Project management. So there's an organization called PMI's Project Management Institute. There's a very big presence in Atlanta, and there's also one here in Augusta that's over 500 members. Atlanta, I think, is 5,000 members, but that would be a good recruiting pool for you guys as well, I would say.
Yeah,
You know,
that
if
exists.
parents are into project management and this is project-based learning, that's something that they could definitely wrap their heads around and
Yeah, I appreciate the
get behind
suggestion.
for their lives.
Yeah, I didn't know that existed, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll talk more.
Yes.
So is the goal more toward the student graduating from high school and going into the workforce, or going on to college, or is that?
I'm going to give you a really big cop-out answer, which is whichever they want. But it's tough because part of Sora is we want to get them real-world work experience and immediately get them doing the thing that they think they'll love, so they don't realize they don't love it after spending $100,000 in college. Anyway, so we're seeing with some of our students who are advanced that they're actually getting reached out to companies already, so they might skip the college step. But for some of our students, college is the natural next step. Some of our students are interested in medical, that sort of thing. So, cop-out answer, we're all about addressing whatever their goals are.
Well, and that's a good answer, really. That's probably the only answer you have at this point. But I mean, I can see because of the shift generationally in what's happening after high school. I think everybody realizes going to college is not the answer to everything. So I think that's probably
Like
direction.
we want students to be prepared for any path they wish to take. That's why we take their goals, and with both the parents or guardians and the student equally. Yeah. Yes?
Did you want to say what Sora stands for? I don't know if I slept through that or not.
Yeah. No, we get this question about the name of Sora quite a bit. It actually doesn't really stand for anything. I mean, I could make up something on the spot, but that'd be lying. Sora really is. We came up with the name of Sora because it's actually the name of a species of a bird. We just like the natural symbolism of bird, freedom, independence, that type of thing. It's also, 2 syllables and, we have the domain.
Yes,
So the domain.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a couple other cool ones we had, and then we're like, it's not real. Yeah, it happens.
I went the traditional college route and got an internship off the school that changed my life. So if for students that aren't going to school, and it sounds like you are going to college, you still might be able to give them some kind of internship for that type of experience, which I think is phenomenal. How does that work? Say in high school, I want to do an internship when I get out, maybe I don't have time in high school. How would that happen?
So Wesley, you mentioned the collective, so here, the structural answer.
Yeah, so they can integrate it into their normal school day at Sora or their school week. So some of our students, they're looking at working at like game development companies part-time, so like a couple days a week. One girl will be doing research over the summer. So summer is also a factor that can be considered. So it just varies per student, but it can be integrated in any type of way that they're looking at it.
Yeah.
And I'll just agree with you that internships do completely change your life, because I started at Georgia Tech as a mechanical engineer, quickly did my first mechanical engineering project, realized I was not a mechanical engineer. Did medical research, thought he wanted to be a doctor his entire growing up, and then was lucky enough to get an in at Emory where he did medical research. What was it? You saw blood and you realized you're not a doctor.
It wasn't that. I didn't want to work in a lab. I don't know.
Yeah, so he could have been going to medical school right now and hating it, $100,000 in debt. So we realized that any first step before you have to make this huge decision with your life should include information about the decision. So that's why Sora is designed around.
Yeah, I mean, like the program itself is designed for exploration of their interests and future careers they might be interested in. That's why the mentor network. That's why the projects themselves are based on interests. Because, like, for example, one of our students right now, like, she was building her own rocket. She just decided, so she's learning physics, chemistry, and stuff and such. And towards the end of the rocket, she's like, actually, this is not something I want to do. Build like rocket engineering basically. She even spoke to like one of our mentors, who's like a former engineer at SpaceX, and she decided not something I'm particularly interested in, which is totally fine.
Awesome.
It's better to discover that now rather than later. Yes.
Me or,
I
sorry.
don't think you had a chance to have a question yet. If you want to say it.
So please.
So I am thinking, I know it sounds like you guys have a lot of, it's not necessarily STEM background because you've got people that are doing creative writing and such, but as somebody who has a business background, I'm a CPA, so what would you do if you had a student that kind of had more of a business discipline or, like finance, or is there some sort of project that you could come up with for them, or would they have to do more of like a traditional, I guess that's kind of where my mind's going, is kind of where I went through traditional schooling, and thank God for me, after all of my schooling, I actually did like it. But like you said, it's very possible, people go through their schooling and they're like, oh, I want to be CPA, and they're like, oh, I totally so just kind of wanting your plans on that, of kind of expanding into different, as more students come, or is it just kind of as the student comes and says, I want to do this?
Kind of that. I will say we are more varied outside of STEM. They're actually both finance majors.
Right. Perfect.
But we
Just kind of assume.
I mean, you hear building rockets,
No. Yeah. Exactly. And it does probably go more towards the STEM angle because students see each other building cool stuff, like, I want to do that, even if. But we do have students writing books. Some of our students are actually, we challenge them with selling something. So where people create a video game, we're like, okay, list it and try to make X amount of sales, try to push them toward entrepreneurial things like that as well. So we can definitely design the school around that. Fitting credits into that is a little more difficult. Fitting writing is super easy, but if you're just more interested in business stuff, fitting math and STEM in there can be a little more challenging. But it's a dance that we're constantly playing. Yeah.
Robbie kind of hit on it that not everybody going to college, traditional college, is the thing to do. And I'm from across the river in Aiken, and something the education system is trying to do is to show students manufacturing, and there's a lot of things you can do besides go get a 4-year degree and then, flip burgers till you find a job or whatever. But that manufacturing is cool and high tech, and it's not dirty. Again, hooking into the chamber when you guys get back into Atlanta and getting connected with manufacturers for internships and a lot of things. Because if they see all that gee whiz stuff that's on the plant floor in a lot of manufacturing facilities, that's your rocket builders and all
Yeah,
that
kid goes,
stuff.
cool,
Yeah, so yeah, that'll be a good place to plug into.
So honestly, I imagine this is going to be a deeper conversation after this, but the question I have, and it's really triggered by sort of the rural issues and the accessibility issues. Have you looked into or figured out how you can tap into federal funding to support, basically financial aid for students to participate in these programs?
Yeah, we've looked into that. Accreditation is definitely part of that. So
Yeah.
once we get the accreditation, then
Got it.
It's also, the government holds a really tight hold on what's the correct way to educate someone. That's also.
Well, yeah, but there's also,
Yeah.
that's why I think it's a deeper, there are pathways outside of those
There are.
traditional ones.
Most of the grants though have some sort of prerequisite about yearly testing, and we didn't touch on it too much. We don't have a standard sequence students follow, so instead we lay out all the things they need to learn. We allow them to choose what order, and so yearly testing kind of throws a wrench in that. But
Yeah, I think the funding would typically be more available through the workforce training side of the government.
That's
part-
true.
That's
Okay,
something
that's
else,
part of it,
yeah.
That's a good point, yeah.
So we understand you're on the path of accreditation. The question is, what is the time frame for that? How long do the accrediting bodies require to get there? Is it a 2-3 year process?
So it's 1 to 2 years. The first year is really us gathering data and student outcomes, and the next year is them working with us to do stakeholder interviews, student interviews, parent interviews, faculty, that type of thing. So basically, first year is outcome, second year is audit at that point. So,
That's a good way of putting it.
yeah.
So we're gonna have one more question and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
You talked about keeping them social and keeping them interactive with each other. And I was wondering what aspects of like social awareness or community service or something that they can do outside themselves. Like not just focus on, I've got a teenager, so they focus on the screen a lot and, they become very, not me people, but I guess like to what you guys are doing to get them outside themselves.
Self-contained.
Yeah, to get them like, I guess on a community service level, like maybe if there's a volunteer program or something, that kind of thing.
one thing that we're constantly trying to do is expose them to the greater world outside of themselves. So, for example, just a little background, Sora is a really unique way of doing things, so we have to get them up to speed. So one of the ways that we did during orientation is we had them work on a problem pretending to be a nonprofit. So we had them pretend, usually it's a real world application, but this time we had them pretend like they're a nonprofit. We got a $5 million grant from the government to make a long sustainable impact on the problem of preventable blindness. And then they worked for the whole week on that, and then at the end they present to the CEO of a company that actually works on that every day. So we're always trying to expose them to, even as a young person, this is what I experienced. With a little bit of dedication, you can make a really big impact. So that's something, just philosophically ourselves, we're always trying to expose students to. It's a good point.
Good.
Yeah.
So one of the things, you guys all know this with the Women League Hubs is it's a community-based platform for you guys to share. So the last question is, what is it that we can do as a community to help you guys with your business?
Yeah, so as some of you have mentioned earlier, I guess this makes our ask more or less twofold, but we are looking for families who are high school age students who are looking for a better school really to better prepare their students for their careers and their futures. And on top of that, we're also looking for local businesses, organizations to work with, to partner with, to provide work opportunities for students to help expose them to new industries and subjects.
Well, thank you very much.
Fancy mug, you guys can decide.
Yeah,
Roshi and Blue, they can wrestle for it.
You guys literally